Hey, everybody, this is Chris
and Cathy
from PetAbility Podcast. We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to PetAbility Podcast through your favorite streaming app. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at PetAbility Podcast and share our content on social media.
You can also support the show by making a donation. Simply go to our website at petabilitypodcast.buzzsprout.com and click on the heart symbol at the top of the page. Thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to PetAbility. I'm your host, Cathy Simons.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston. Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives.
Well, first, let's just take a quick update on what you're doing, because I think it's really exciting and it's so much fun. And actually, I have great admiration for the fact that you picked up and took off like 3 months for going around the country. So yeah. I know you're meeting a lot of dogs out there.
That is true. That is true. So yeah, you're right. We left almost exactly 3 months ago in a tiny little RV during the COVID pandemic. And we've gone all around the United States and are finally heading back home. So a lot of great experiences, mainly outside, a lot of national parks and state parks, and just doing things and seeing things I've never done or seen before.
You know what I love, actually? I mean, I know that it's fun for you to for the waterfalls and the hiking and everything, but I love it when you post that you met new people and their animals. Like, it's exciting to meet people, and it's exciting about how animals bring people together, right? So if I see two people, just regular people standing around an RV, I'm not going over there. They could be crazy. No. I have no idea. Exactly. But if I see those same two people with a dog, I'm heading right over there.
Yeah.
I'm heading right. It gives me full license to head right over there.
That's right. And very early on in the trip, I renamed this little RV excursion the PetAbility Tour.
Oh.
Because I started meeting all kinds of people with really great dogs and dogs with various issues. You know, I've met dogs that have had FHO surgery and cruciate tears and weight issues. I met a one-eyed dog. I've met a three-legged dog. And again, these dogs are living the life. I mean, you know, they're traveling with their people. I did not have any idea before this trip how many people are simply choosing to use their RV so they can bring their dogs, you know, right. That's their mode of transportation versus, you know, flying in somewhere, renting a car and going to a hotel. I mean, yes, we have the pandemic, but, you know, predating that, you know, most of the people that I've met have been RVing for a long time so they could bring their dog and have all their family members with them.
Right. And it's so exciting to see that some of these are sort of like differently abled dogs, and they're still out there killing it, crushing it, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's very exciting. So thank you for that, Chris. I posted some of those pictures on Instagram if people want to check them out. Some really cute animals that you've seen on the way. So I thought today, because we're coming to the end of season 1, I thought we would do a little bit of a Q&A, Chris. Mm-hmm. So, I wrote down some questions, which you are not privy to ahead of time, so they might be no stumpers.
Exactly. I'm nervous. I said, Cathy.
No stumpers.
No stumpers.
So, and I imagine you must have written some questions for me. So would you like me to go, or do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Okay.
Bring it on.
All right. Okay. So, I actually had this question presented to me recently, right, from a veterinarian, and I thought, oh, that's a good question. She wanted to know if there were any conditions that would eliminate a dog as a candidate for physical rehabilitation. I had to think long and hard about that one, Chris, but can you think of any conditions that might keep a dog out of therapy, even if it's temporary?
Well, I think that certainly there are precautions and contraindications for different things that may be going on with the pet. Yeah. that, we need to be aware of. So that's why we always get a referral. We ask the veterinarian who is referring the pet about all the disease processes and things that may be going on, because we don't want to put a dog in hydrotherapy, for example, that may have a skin condition or a corneal ulcer, something like that. And then if they have heart conditions, me having Cavaliers, they, are prone. I think it's 100% of Cavaliers now, they've said, will have heart disease at some point in their life. And so we need to make sure that, those things are controlled and, what their limitations are in terms of exercise and things like that. But I think that if you are a skilled rehabilitationist, that there's always something that you could potentially do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I put dogs in two categories. And again, just dogs in this example, you have the ones that you really need to motivate to exercise, and they may hate it. They're not active dogs. So I focus more on the passive things that can make their movement more comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then, there are dogs that are maybe very leery, shy, get anxious with handling and being touched. And so those I emphasize active therapies and more of the, exercise component. So I think we can always get around that. I said no stumpers. This is a hard one.
This is a hard one because, and actually, no, I'm glad I asked it because now I can turn around and answer the question for the veterinarian. So thank you very much.
Well, and I'm going to throw it back at you too. What did you come up with?
Well, I was thinking, for the most part, I feel like I can make any pet feel a little bit better, right?
Right. Right.
I think things like, I would not want to see dogs that had unstable fractures.
Oh, of course.
I would not want to see dogs that, that need oxygen therapy. Although even with those dogs, I've done some therapy within their oxygen chambers, very gently, of course. Mm-hmm. I think that you're right. The key here is these dogs should all be evaluated by their veterinarians first. So the veterinarians are going to determine what is their diagnosis, how much exercise they can handle or how much therapy they can handle. And then that will allow us to come up with an appropriate therapy plan. Right. So there may be some dogs that don't meet, the criteria perhaps for rehab, but sometimes it's not what you think. Sometimes I have patients that come in and, their clients they self-referred because they have a senior dog, maybe with just osteoarthritis, but someone has told them or their vet has told them, oh, your dog's just too old for that. When honestly, those dogs may very well be one of the best candidates for rehabilitation. Right. So it's all about the collaboration of the rehab team with the veterinarian.
And I think, we've mentioned this in previous shows, or at least I have too, you have to think about cost benefit. Mm. And whenever I say that, I always qualify. I'm not talking about financial costs. So let's say, the pet owner had all the money in the world, but what is the cost to that pet in terms of, maybe anxiety or, whatever. So, you were talking about like the unstable fracture, but yet, I think there are some like laser protocols and sound protocols that can be used to help get a callus on it, like an ununited fracture and that sort of thing. So, it may not, it'd be slow. It may not be worth, the time and effort put in and cost a lot in terms of finances. But, I still think there are things to do. And then I also, when you were mentioning, animals that are dependent on oxygen, I remember, going into chambers when I worked in the emergency specialty hospital and doing like percussive therapy on dogs with pneumonia and all of that. And then too, the major traumas, animals that are burned, animals that have been hit by a car and have severe, soft tissue injuries, open wounds, road rash, fractures, all of that. But there is, sometimes I think people think, physical therapy again, and I am a physical therapist, so I heard all of these things about, PT really stands for pain and torture or no pain, no gain. And that is absolutely not true. The first thing that we're trying to do is mitigate pain and make them feel better, as you led with in your comments. And
I think, I don't want people to, or anyone to think of therapy or rehabilitation is a medical indulgence. It's really not. I mean, we can help with so many conditions, so many things. Like you said, the burns, the pneumonia, the dog that got hit by a car, the cat that, fell out of a tree. Just so many things we can do. But the cost benefit, you're right. I like to think about also the pet's emotional health too. Yeah. Is this something that they can tolerate emotionally, right? And, if you have a good therapist, like you said, then we can work around some of those things about anxiety and nervousness. But I want to make sure that dog emotionally is going to be able to handle that as well, that they're not that they don't go over their thresholds.
Right. And even getting to the clinic,
Yeah, exactly.
Sometime, they're exhausted by the time they get out of their home, and into the hospital or clinic or facility, or very painful, at that point. And if they were just left to at home and stayed put, they would actually be more comfortable. So it's those kinds of things too. But then again, it's up to us to find those professionals that may be able to go to the pet's home. That's why we have, home therapies, just like for people. So.
Good answer, Chris. Good answer.
Thanks, man. All right. So I passed the test.
You got one down. Yep. Okay.
All right. Okay. Here goes your question. And it's easy because.
Oh, thank God.
I was thinking about this. We've known each other for almost 20 years and been, collaborating for that time. But there are still things that I don't know about you. And one thing that I do know is that you're a pug lover and you've had many pugs, and so one thing that I think of as a physical rehabilitationist is, pugs are a short-nosed breed or brachiocephalic. And I know that there are certain precautions that need to be taken with these types of breeds. So other examples would be your French and English bulldog, Shih Tzus, Boston Terriers, and the like. So again, for our audience, they're kind of the smush face. Brachio means short and cephalic is head. And so Cathy, can you tell us what kinds of things that you look for when you're out there with your pugs, and why maybe these precautions need to be taken?
Well, first of all, if I see any pug, once again, I'm running right towards those people because I need to squish their dogs and smush their faces. But
smush them more.
I need to smush them more. But that aside, it's like you said that brachial is short, and what happens is these dogs have short little noses, right? So if you look at my dog's nose, it's a little tiny thing. It's very short compared to your dog, the Cavalier, sort of a muzzle, and the nose comes out at the end there. And within the nose, there's these little rolled up bones called turbinates. And so as air, as they come in and air comes in and out, it's kind of cool down the airflow for those dogs. And because my dog's little rolled up bones, those little turbinates are really small, and he doesn't have the ability to cool the air that's coming in like dogs that have a long muzzle would. So one of the things we have to be careful and always cautious about with these brachiocephalic dogs is overheating, right? Mm-hmm. So overworking them if they're outside, walking them in the summertime, and even when we're considering physical, rehabilitation within the clinic, exercising them in water, exercising them in the pool, right? So overheating is certainly one of the things I'm certainly concerned about, because that happens with all the brachiocephalic dogs. They're all at higher risk for heat stroke or overheating. And also sometimes these little dogs have, you can sometimes see these pugs with narrow tracheas or tracheal collapse or elongated soft palates. So again, it all comes down to sort of this breathing, making sure they can breathe. And that was one of the first, it's one of the first things they teach you in rehab school is about these little brachiocephalic dogs and making sure that we don't overwork them, overheat them, and making sure that they are comfortable, and checking them periodically to make sure during therapy that they're okay. So checking their breathing, checking their heart rate, checking their color, things like that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you specifically, or what are some of the signs that people should look for? Again, hopefully most of our owners that have these short-nosed dogs are already aware, but this was one thing that I didn't know coming from the people world. I had no idea that that the nose and these turbinates, I didn't even know that term until just now, were actually responsible for cooling the air. And again, we need to remind people that dogs don't sweat other than between their toes. So I know they pant to kind of blow off hot air and bring cool air in more rapidly, I think, through their mouths and things. But again, how this whole, nary sinus system, works. So anyway, fascinating.
And the dog nose is fascinating. I mean, that could be a whole show right there, honestly. I mean, that could be a whole show.
Hey, I've got a trivia question for you.
Oh, gosh. Oh, okay. All right, good.
All right. Because you threw me with that first one, so I'm going to throw it back at you.
Okay.
What is the opposite term of brachiocephalic?
Not broken cephalic. I don't know.
I think, and again, I did not look this up, but I'm a nerd. I think it's dociocephalic. I think it's
dociocephalic.
Yeah.
All right, I have to look that up.
So that's the long-nosed dog. And I remember they contrasted, you taught us this early on in our education, like a collie, they have a really long nose, right? And then there's all those in between, but yeah.
I like all dog noses. I think they're fantastic.
Back to the signs. What should people be looking for?
Oh, well, the panting for sure. And with pugs, they often will have they have those long tongues, long giant tongues, and that tongue's hanging out. The panting, distress, increase in heart rate, laying down, sitting down, on walks, things like that. Anything,
noisy breathing.
Noisy breathing. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
More than they usually do because like you said, with the elongated soft palate, some of them are noisy breathers as is, but if it increases and, and I would say too, well, of course their heart rate's going to increase if they're exercising.
Yeah, true. But if you're laying down and overheating.
Yeah, right. And let's remind people too, like, what is the normal temperature for a dog?
Normal temperature for dog is 101 to 101 to 102, I believe, is the normal.
I remember it's like 100.5 to 102.5, like on the extremes. But
that's a good point. Yeah. So if you took these dogs' temperatures and they're overheating, you're going to see a temperature over 102 with these dogs. So, and again, this doesn't mean that brachial dogs can't do therapy like we talked about before, like excluding them from rehab. It doesn't. You just have to be cautious and aware.
Yeah, my dad's family has Boston Terriers, and they just make sure that they exercise them, in the morning and evening when it's cooler, keep them out of the sun, try to keep them in the shade. Their dog Lily, who recently passed, was an excellent agility dog. And, she did that mainly outside and outside environments, and she was awesome, So they can do all sorts of things, but you just need to be aware. Yeah. All right. What's my next question?
Okay. What is your next question? Your next question for you is, I know you have little Cavaliers. So what do you see, or what are some of the most common things we see little dogs in therapy for?
Oh, well, there's all kinds of things, but I'm just going to speak to kind of the orthopedic side of things. So I think the number one or two maybe orthopedic things that I specifically think of for little dogs is patellar luxations. So that's the sliding out dislocation of, if you will, of the kneecaps. And that's because a lot of these small dogs have been bred down over time. And so their bones get more curved as they're shortened, and that kneecap slides in the groove at the end of the thigh bone, the femur. And if that's curved, then the train, which is the patella, kind of goes off the track. So I remember when I brought the twins, Baxter and Julep, in for their very first veterinary exam. And that's one of the things that my veterinarian tested for orthopedically. He kind of checked their hips and, did the once over, but he made a comment. He's like, oh, these guys have really, solid kneecaps. He probably already knew that. And I'm like, actually, I never
just go with it.
Them.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. They're only like 3 or 4 months old. Didn't think about it.
Yeah.
But So, and he's checked them since too. And I know I haven't had any problems, but I know in therapy, a lot of times that's what I am treating them for. I remember back when I was at the specialty hospital, we saw several little dogs that had a condition called avascular necrosis. And that was kind of a new one to me in that there's one little artery that feeds the very end of the ball of the hip. So you have a ball in the socket of the hip joint, and the ball that fits into that socket just has one little feeder artery. And sometimes in these little dogs, it is deficient, non-existent. For whatever reason, a blood supply does not get there. And without blood, the tissue dies. So avascular means no blood flow. Necrosis means death of that tissue. And again, these little dogs might be, limping and, not wanting to bear weight on that limb and so forth. And it's not the most easily picked up. I think that's why I've only really seen them in the specialty hospital, because it's a little bit hard to diagnose. They tend to rule out other things and then come up with that. Which brings me back to the patellar luxations. And I've seen this several times in this RV trip, actually, Cathy. And I'm like, should I say something or not? But it's that skippy step. It's a classic skipping where, they're moving along, and they're, on their walk or whatever. And then all of a sudden they have this little hitch, the skip in that leg. And that's the dog's attempt. Exactly. That attempt to pop it back in. And usually if it comes in 4 grades. And so if it's a grade 1 or even a 2, then oftentimes they can take care of it themselves by that maneuver. But otherwise it may need surgery or, other things to help fix it.
Yeah, the dogs with 1s and 2s, they get really efficient at popping that back in, They get really efficient at that popping that. It's probably millions of little dogs out there with, grade 1 or 2 luxating patellas that have had fine lives and we don't even, don't even know that, it's out. So,
But I guess one of the things to watch for, if you do see a skippy step and they're young, that sometimes that can progress. So into a grade 2, 3, 4. And there's a kind of a window of opportunity where it can be surgically corrected. And so you don't want to let it go too long where it's not fixable. So definitely address it. We can help as rehabbers.
That's right. Good answer, Chris. Good answer.
Thanks, Cathy. So you ready for your next one?
I'm ready.
All right. Here it is.
Okay.
What is your favorite modality and why?
Man, that's a stumper because I have so many favorite things. Now, if I say my hands, is that 1 or 2 things? Is that one thing? Is that one I
think it's one. It's
one modality.
Yeah.
Okay. I can only have one modality. I'm going to say hands. I'm going to say hands. Because I'm not even sure if that's a modality. I need my hands because.
Well, I think it is. Yeah. I think it is a modality because when I looked up the definition of modality a long time ago, it was like a tool or some, special equipment or whatever that is used in, therapy or whatever. Now, I think that equipment. Your hands, exactly, they're very skilled, right? You've trained them. Not anybody off the street can do the kinds of things that you can do. So I do think it qualifies as a modality.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Thank you. And I think it gives me, I'm not sure even what the word is. I think I can just feeling the tissue, having sort of a feeling of what feels normal, what doesn't feel normal, the myofascial, just the way it feels when you lift it and roll it, just releasing tight muscles and tissue. I think that gives me the best sense of how your dog is feeling and or responding to therapy, right? So sure, having your laser is great and having your therapy balls is great and having your underwater treadmill is great. Those are all great modalities. But if you don't know what normal tissue feels like or tight tissue feels like or myofascial feels like, you have to know that. You need to know that. Plus, it's a kind of way. I mean, I'm really getting to know these dogs and cats and birds intimately, I guess, because I've got my hands all over them. Yeah. But also, how many times have you been going over a dog, massaging or stretching or whatever, and found something? I've actually found 2 or 3 times in the last year a bump or a lump on a dog that wasn't there the week before, that the owner didn't find and needed medical attention. So even just like getting to know that dog and what's normal on that dog's body, lymph nodes. Hey, these lymph nodes weren't swollen last week. Hey, what's this bump? It wasn't there a month ago. So in therapy, we actually can head off some other diseases by just getting to know what the dog's tissue feels like, touching the dog, palpating the dog, feeling the muscles, seeing what's right and what's not right. So hands, it's my hands down. It's my hands.
Well, and I think that is, as I said before, a true skill that that separates what we do from a lot of other specialties in the veterinary profession,
Right.
and even in the human, medical field. I go to many appointments, and it's Q&A, and they may, put a stethoscope on my heart or, listen to my lungs or whatever, but they're not really, my GP isn't, touching and feeling and finding the things that maybe if I had go to a physical therapist that they would feel and find on a very specific level. So
Yeah.
Good answer.
Thank you. All right. Now, this is my most favorite question of the night and my last question, but I saved it for the last because I think it's the best.
Okay.
what I want to know, what is the most exotic animal you have worked with in physical therapy? What is the most coolest, most exotic animal you've worked with?
Well, hands down, the sea lion at the New England Aquarium.
The sea lion?
I know.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. And his name was Baranov, and he was a large male. They fluctuate in weight a lot depending on the season and if they're putting on weight for, I don't know, breeding or whatever. And so he was about 400 pounds at the time.
Wow.
And Cathy,
were you intimidated?
What makes him special is he was also blind. No, he's blind.
Oh, good God.
Blind.
Get out. I love
and that's
him.
your jam.
I love him.
Yeah.
That's my jam. Oh, he's the best thing.
No, I was not intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should have been intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? And so how this happened is there was a volunteer that was working at my business, and she also volunteered at the aquarium. And she said that Baranov was having some mobilities, and they were really reaching out to, try to with, solution, and they were stumped. And even the aquarium veterinarian couldn't, come up with anything. And so I volunteered. They didn't pay me or anything. I wanted to do this. I volunteered to go in and take a look at him. And I met with a few different people in that area of the aquarium that cared for these guys, and also met with the vet. And I gave him a whole bunch of ideas. But then it came time to actually meet Baranov. And I don't know what I was thinking, but they're like, okay, here are your boots. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, come on, follow me. And I follow, and literally I'm on exhibit with Baranov. So we went out, and all these people that are there to see the show are behind the glass, and I'm one of the sea lions. And so we were off to the side, and they used this wand with this kind of soft ball thing on the end, and it was a touch cue kind of thing. And so when he would, they would do different things. Evidently he could smell this or something, I don't know, because he was blind. But they just kept feeding him fish, and then I'm like palpating, back to your hands comment. And it was fascinating because I could feel everything that I can feel on a dog or other mammal, but it was all inside the tube of his body. So I could feel his hip, I could feel his knee, but it was within that cylinder, if you will. And then, yes. And then all that's out was his ankle and his feet. And again, 5 toes, the toenails, everything. Now, what was interesting is that he was having some sort of, it wasn't a fungus or anything like that, but his feet were sloughing. And and so he didn't want to move. He didn't, he just had gotten a lot more inactive. The good news is, I don't know if anything I told them ever worked, but they were very excited about the possibilities and the ideas. But the aquarium was undergoing some remodeling. And so many of the animals needed to be relocated, either temporarily or permanently. He was moved to Mystic, Connecticut. They had a completely different flooring in that exhibit, in their aquarium, and he thrived.
And it made a difference.
His feet healed up. He started swimming again and being interactive and playful.
Nice.
Which brings me to my point again at how important the surface is for these animals. You know, we've had a whole show on traction, and really relative to other shows, it hasn't gotten a lot of downloads, but it's so important.
So important.
And yes. And I've talked to many people on the road about, you know, these things and turned them on to, you know, different possibilities and ideas to help their dogs. So anyway, that's it. That's my most
What's exciting is that, that a lot of the stuff that we do in rehab with dogs, just it translates to other animals, you know, helping other animals. So that's kind of cool. So, as I haven't had that much of an experience with a lot of exotic animals. You know, I have my friend Jerry the goat, and you know, I see a lot of birds, people's pet birds and turkeys and chickens and so forth. But when I was at Angel, Chris, I worked at Angel Animal. Actually, it's Angel Animal Medical Center now. It used to be Angel Memorial. And I worked in the radiology department. And so we would see a lot of exotics come through there, you know, from all over, you know, all over the country, zoos and so forth, and museum. And one day they brought in a penguin that needed to be x-rayed, right? So, and I don't know why, but for some reason, I think I'm the only one there. So I'm like, no problem, I'll x-ray this penguin. Now, mind you, I didn't know, because I don't know anything about penguins. This is a rock hopper penguin. So this penguin is like 4 feet tall. Right?
Oh my gosh.
So it's huge, right? And I got x-ray its foot or something, right? So somehow I get on the table, and it's all muscle. Like, it's just like you said, a cylinder. It's a cylinder of muscles, right?
Yeah. Did you say just hop on up here?
I said hop on up.
Rock hopper. Yeah, hop up on the table.
Right? So he gets up on the table, right? And he does this. Do you know who Ronda Rousey is? Do you know who she's this UFC fighter, right? And she's famous for like knocking people out, like in the first. That penguin was like Ronda Rousey. He just like punched me rapid fast, boom, 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 right in the face with a flipper, real fast. He beat the crap out of me with his flipper. It's boom, 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 real fast, right? So that just like sends me into like a tailspin, because it was really, I mean, it smacked me in the face hard. Now it's jumping back and forth from the x-ray table to the other table in the room. It's like a 5-foot jump, right? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I just running all around trying to catch this penguin. This is why they call them rock hoppers, people, because they can jump really far.
Wow. That is cray.
Long story short, if you're going to x-ray a penguin, make sure you have a second helper, because they'll punch you in the face. The Ronda Rousey of animals. Boom, boom, boom.
That's a good tip for our listeners.
Hopefully Ronda Rousey is listening and she can hear the comparison between this badass penguin and
follow us, Ronda Rousey.
So anyway,
I just have to say, I was giggling to myself over here, because when you started to ask me the question, my question to you as my final question was similar.
Oh, what is it?
So I was going to ask you to name a species of animal that you would love to work with that you haven't already.
Sea turtle.
Because I knew about Jerry. I thought maybe.
Well, it's my lifelong dream to work with a giraffe, but I don't know that will happen ever. But a sea turtle, I think I would love to do the sea turtles. I went to the turtle hospital when we were in Key West. It was fascinating. They did great work there. They rehab these turtles and they can release them. And it's just wonderful what they do there. Giraffe, I would love to. I also would like to draw blood from a giraffe. I don't know why, because it's a technician thing. But it's a toss-up between the giraffe and the sea turtle.
So, wait, drawing blood on the giraffe, is it a jugular?
I would assume so. I would assume so. I don't know. I guess I haven't really thought that. I haven't really thought that. I wonder
how big.
I haven't really thought that fantasy all the way through, but that's my fantasy.
Well, I did know that you went to the sea turtle rescue thing, and you had advised me to do the same, and we'd actually run out of time when we were there last year. But you know, when formulating these questions, you know, and then I'd often think, like, how would I answer this, right? And so I wrote down mine, and we're so similar.
I know.
You know, we've talked about being twinsies before. Yeah. But I have, because I'd gone to Africa, to Kenya, a few years ago, and so I wrote giraffe. I wrote sea mammal, dolphin, and then not a mammal, but sea turtle. I wrote turtle. And then I said, but being realistic, like what would be most probable? Squirrel, alpaca.
Oh, I love
The alpacas get me with those long lashes.
Yeah, they get you. Oh, and chipmunks. I love chipmunks. Little squirrels.
Oh,
and chipmunks.
yeah. You have your Chester.
I do. Yep,
So, and I thought of the alpaca because I know we have an episode about wheelchairs and carts and things. And Eddie's Wheels, who we interviewed, they've done several carts for alpacas because, they're, again, kind of like the horses and stuff. They're farm animals that are important. Yeah, very important to these people. So, yeah, they've done carts, which I think is amazing.
So we have so much more living to do. We have so many animals we can rehab.
I know. Exactly.
And increase the function of so many animals across the world.
Could be improved by
us. Yeah. Well, that was lots of fun, Chris. Thank you. Listen, don't put penguin on your list. Just FYI, don't.
No, it wasn't there, and I'm not adding it. No,
don't add it.
And again, it's interesting because some things I kind of thought, I think this is how Cathy might answer, but again, surprised by some of your answers, and I always like learning a little bit more about my podcasting partner.
Yeah, it's fun.
So. All right, Chris. We should do this again annually. We'll Q&A.
Exactly. We'll do it again in season 2, and I hope everybody will come with us for season 2. We have so many great shows coming up. I'm not going to lay down any teasers yet, but we have so many great interviews coming up.
Right. And we still have shows going into the end of the year. So don't think that this is it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when January 1st comes, or in January, which we're going to have some really good interviews. So I hope everybody stays with us for that because we have so much good stuff coming.
You got it. I'm still excited.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Cathy. Take care. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our show. Follow us on Facebook or on Instagram at PetAbility Podcast.
For more information about Cathy's books and living with blind dogs, please go to enableyourpet.com. Thank you, and please tune in next time.